Okay, let's jump right into this. As a local reporter covering the community here in Northern California, you come across a lot of stories, but every now and then one comes along that just literally stops you in your tracks. Today, in this explainer, we're taking a really close look at the shocking and honestly rapidly unfolding events surrounding Miranda's rescue. It's an animal sanctuary right over in Fortuna. Now, this is a story that has completely rattled our local community. It's absolutely devastated animal rescue volunteers all across the state, and it's actually sparked a major felony investigation. We are going to walk through exactly what we know so far. We'll trace the timeline, look at the intense emotional fallout, and break down the hard case facts.
But right off the bat, to really understand the gravity of the situation, we have to establish the stakes. Because amidst this absolute storm of media coverage and these horrific allegations, Shannon Miranda, the man who has devoted 31 years of his life to this work, has issued a staunch, unwavering denial. He insists he has never put down an adoptable animal. He says he only ever utilized euthanasia as a humane, final option for suffering or dangerous dogs. And, it's important to note here, that is actually not illegal for a private rescue in California. He intends to vigorously defend himself, and he's urging the public to just wait for the legal process to separate fact from fiction.
But, juxtaposed right up against that firm denial, we have the profound heartbreak of the shelter workers who partnered with him for years. Listen to the words of Cindy Burnham. She's with Hitchcock Road Animal Services over in Salinas, and her organization transferred 85 dogs to Miranda's rescue over the past 6 years alone. Her words really perfectly capture the absolute betrayal felt by rescue advocates right now. I mean, they genuinely believed they were sending these vulnerable animals to a safe haven, a highly respected, quote-unquote, no-kill sanctuary where hard-to-place dogs would finally get a second chance. Instead, they are now left agonizing over whether the dogs they loved and cared for are even still alive. And this really is the crux of the whole thing. We have two very different realities crashing into each other right now. On one side, we're balancing the real, tangible human and animal toll, like Oliver, a 4-year-old pit bull recently pulled from the facility. And on the other side, we have the stark, sterile legal reality of a Humboldt County Superior Court search warrant that brought this entire operation to a grinding halt. So we're balancing real, beating hearts with a very complex, high-stakes legal investigation.
Section 1. A community in shock. The emotional fallout.
Let's talk about Oliver for a second, because his story of survival is pretty grim. When news of the investigation broke, Dan Martinez, who is the president of a San Jose-based rescue and Oliver's original handler, he immediately drove up to Fortuna to get his dog back. But the dog he retrieved? Almost unrecognizable. Oliver was emaciated. We're talking ribs showing, fur missing from his legs, and he had all these scratches and scars across his face. Martinez noted that Oliver was clearly not being fed properly, nor was he given the attention you'd expect from a so-called sanctuary. For the volunteers who literally put their blood, sweat, and tears into saving these animals, seeing a dog return in this condition is just their absolute worst nightmare come to life. And that sense of horror, it extends all the way to the very top of municipal shelter operations. Take Joe DeVries, the director of Oakland Animal Services. They were a major sender of dogs to Miranda's. He shared a genuinely chilling reality. He had been explicitly told by Miranda that a specific dog, named Zorro, had been happily adopted. Incredible news, right? Well, just days later, DeVries is looking at photographic evidence of Zorro with a bullet hole in her head, confirmed by matching her microchip data. For DeVries and his team, this wasn't just some nasty rumor. It was cold, hard, undeniable physical evidence of a massive deception.
Section 2. Timeline of the discovery. Tracing the investigation.
So how did this all come to light? The timeline moves incredibly fast. Now, for years, there had been whispers and rumors, but no solid proof. That all changed on April 22nd. Local animal advocates Jennifer Raymond and Jenna Moore had been quietly monitoring the property with trail cameras, and they contacted the sheriff's office with some serious concerns about dogs being buried. On April 26th, they spot multiple large loads of dirt being dumped into a specific field. Then, under the cover of darkness on April 27th, these advocates covertly entered the property and literally started digging. What they found was immediately handed over to deputies, and that provided the probable cause for the sheriff's office to execute a massive, comprehensive search warrant at 6:30 p.m. on May 1st, where they seized records, firearms, and electronics. The details of what they actually uncovered in the dirt that night on April 27th are truly harrowing. The advocates dug up 8 freshly killed dogs. The bodies were reportedly still warm and bleeding. They all had holes in their heads, consistent with gunshot wounds. And when they scanned the bodies,
They found that all but one had microchips, strongly suggesting they were in fact transfers from municipal shelters. But here's the most devastating part of all. Two of the animals were puppies. They literally still had their baby teeth. It was this gruesome, undeniable discovery that forced law enforcement into immediate action.
Section 3. Analyzing the case facts. The business of rescue. 600. According to investigators, this is the massive volume of dogs Miranda's rescue took in from various shelters scattered all across the state. I mean, everywhere from Del Norte County down to Palm Springs, in just a single recent year. That is an absolutely staggering number of animals for a localized private rescue operation to handle. And, as you might guess, with those 600 dogs came money. A lot of it. Investigators estimate that Miranda's rescue collected roughly $510,000 in payments tied to accepting and caring for those transferred animals over just the last year. Municipal shelters pay these fees to private rescues to help cover the cost of long-term housing, feeding, and basically caring for these hard-to-place dogs. Let's break that down just a bit more, to put it into real perspective. Take Oakland Animal Services. They transferred 445 animals to Miranda's between 2023 and 2025. At a minimum payment of $400 per dog, that generated an estimated $178,000 in revenue. Solano County, they sent 126 dogs in just 1 year, at $500 a dog, generating over $63,000. We're talking about a vast amount of money changing hands here, which investigators argue created a constant, looming financial incentive to just keep taking in more and more animals.
And that financial pipeline is at the absolute core of the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office investigation. Detective Julian Aguilera's search warrant affidavit lays out a highly disturbing theory. He officially alleges that Shannon Miranda intentionally killed dogs for financial gain, specifically that he was putting them down to make physical room so he could accept new dogs and collect those associated surrender fees. The affidavit asserts Miranda systematically lied to shelters, claiming dogs were happily adopted when they were actually dead. It also points to a 1993 expunged embezzlement conviction, suggesting a supposed pattern of poor business behavior, and it explicitly requested the seizure of his firearms to prevent the destruction of evidence or the killing of any future dogs.
Section 4. A town divided. The community fallout. You know, during a recent incredibly polarized Humboldt County Board of Supervisors meeting, residents absolutely packed the room to make their voices heard, and this town is fiercely divided. Defenders of Shannon Miranda took to the podium, and they described him as an upstanding person who has saved thousands upon thousands of animals over the decades. One supporter even called the current backlash a lynch mob fueled entirely by misinformation and a rapid rush to judgment. But, on the flip side, critics expressed profound outrage. They argue that if these allegations are true, it means countless opportunities to intervene were missed, and vulnerable animals simply vanished through the system for years without anyone noticing. Which actually brings us to perhaps the most important takeaway from this entire explainer. You have to ask yourself, how could a system allow hundreds of animals to potentially just vanish? Well, the glaring answer is a total lack of oversight. Despite being a registered 501c3 nonprofit public charity handling hundreds of thousands of dollars in municipal, taxpayer-funded money, there is actually no state regulatory body in California that strictly mandates and oversees private rescue operations like Miranda's. They're encouraged to follow guidelines, sure, but they are largely just self-policed. So as this legal process continues and law enforcement meticulously sorts through all those seized records, we're really left with a chilling reality check. Because the investigation into Miranda's rescue is about far more than just one man or one facility in Humboldt County. It's a mirror being held up to the entire animal welfare system. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. If our current system can theoretically lose track of hundreds of microchipped animals, how on earth do we ensure the safety of our most vulnerable pets once they leave the front doors of a municipal shelter? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Definitely keep your eyes on the news as this develops, and we'll see you next time.